Super cool radio.
Hey everyone, before we jump into the show, I want to tell you about our merch store on Threadless. Shop a wide variety of logos with multiple colors and sizes available for each design. Your support is greatly appreciated and helps us continue to make killer content like this episode. Please visit supercoolradio.threadless.com or the link in the description to shop now. Hello everyone. I am Matthew Thomas. This is Super Cool Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check this out. I got a really great guest with me for this episode. He is a world-class writer, producer, arranger, engineer, mixer, and musician who has collaborated with many incredible musicians, including Sheila E, Stevie Wonder, Ringo Starr, Usher, Snoop Dogg, just to name a few. Please welcome Mychael Gabriel.
Woo! What's up, everybody? It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Matthew.
Of course, I really appreciate you taking time for this interview. I really appreciate it, and I got some cool things I think we're going to discuss. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man.
I did want to start with this because I know from what I've read that you, with your music, your own solo material, that you're really breaking barriers with your music. So how would you describe your vision and ideas of music?
Oh, man. So that gets kind of deep. Music to me, and I'm sure you probably agree with this, it's a universal language, right?
Yes,
it's a form of human expression. That alone is a barrier breaker, right? Because it doesn't matter if it's even in a language you understand. If you can feel it, if you can feel what that other person was trying to translate to you, it doesn't matter what language, what genre, what type of instruments. It can touch people's soul, So for me and my music, it's just that I write a lot thinking in terms of feeling and sentiment, So things like genre. It's the album I released is called Genesis. It's a multi-genre album, and part of the reason for that is because I think of genre in the same sense that I think of like an instrument. It's just another tool for that human expression, and certain genres lean towards, certain feelings and emotions, maybe a little more so than others. So to be able to explore that was really kind of important for me with this record.
It definitely, I really picked up on it. And before I talk about the new album, I did want to say, like, you were very right. I've said this in multiple interviews, throughout the seasons, that music is a universal language. I've talked to so many musicians who've toured, in Europe or in Asia, and then like the people are singing music, the lyrics back to them, and they say it's just an incredible experience. They don't necessarily know English, but they can sing the lyrics back to you, and they said it's a mind-blowing experience.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. It's a form of, just unifying people in a moment, from all walks of life. It's just so cool.
Oh, it definitely is. And I did want to, as I said, talk about the new album, which is Genesis. It released back in August. So for you, how, to come up with these different styles and genres of, like, each song is very different. Obviously, you're leaning more on a lot of different emotions throughout this whole album. I know some songs have like kind of that pop kind of sound, but also some songs you can really rock as well. So how was it writing and recording the album?
It was a journey. It really was a journey for me. The whole thing about this project is it didn't fully materialize until partway through the pandemic. I think, like a lot of musicians, you really started, I don't know if you want to call it soul searching or just maybe exploring sort of some new things that maybe you wanted to do but you haven't done. I've been in this industry for quite some time, but it's always been lifting somebody else up or lifting somebody else's project up, you know? And so during the pandemic, I started thinking, I was like, okay, I have like hundreds of songs that I've just written because I'm an engineer by trade first, and I'm a writer as well, you know, and I've been writing, you know, ever since I was a child, you know, and so being able to formulate these musical ideas and put them in a collection was really important for me, you know, in the form of an album. But not only that, but I wanted to have a story to tell. It wasn't just enough for me to be to say, hey, let's take these 12 songs and throw them on a record and, you know, together. I really wanted to have a concept. So for me, this album is titled Genesis. The name Genesis means origin. And so this album kind of speaks towards the revelations of my own spiritual and musical journey, and especially sonically in terms of sounds that have inspired me to become the artist and musician that I am today. I like to rock out. I like a little bit of the pop vibe. I like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know? And then at the same time, the whole album, the concept of the album is a biblical allegory as well. So I love polysemantic ideas. I love symbolism. I love, you know, stories and ideas and albums and concepts with more than one meaning. You know, there's a little bit more to chew on that way, and that's interesting to me. So that's what this album is about.
Well, I really like how you explain that too. And, you know, listening to the album a few times, I always like picked up like different things. Like, you know, every song I listen to, if I listen to it again, I'm like, well, I didn't notice that the first time, or I picked up this. Now re-listening to it. And I think that is really cool. Now, for you, was it a different experience? Like, as you said, you've worked, you know, you've collaborated with different people, you've helped build up other people. So now to focus on your own solo material, was this a different experience for you?
You know, I've always been doing this kind of on and off. I just never fully committed to it, you know? So it was always something that was kind of on my heart to do. I mean, that's the whole reason I got into the whole music thing in the first place, was because I wanted to be able to express my musical ideas and have it sound sonically, you know, like the records that I was listening to. That's one of the reasons I got into record engineering and mixing and mastering and all that, was because it's like, okay, I have this idea, but when I recorded on my 8-track tape recorder, it doesn't quite sound like this record that I've listened to in the past. And so what's the science behind that, you know? And so I've been doing this. I got into it selfishly, for selfish reasons, for myself, to be able to write and record my own musical ideas. And then I accidentally sort of started a career in this, and have been doing it for, you know, other people for, you know, countless years. So it wasn't there was a deep sense of, you know, satisfaction and gratification in knowing that, you know, okay, this is labor intensive, but it's something for me, you know, which is nice for a change.
It is, especially with the pandemic, as you said, it allowed many people to like kind of focus on you know, doing stuff that they really had their heart set on, but never had the time for.
Right.
And obviously, with, you know, the pandemic, the world not as active as it was, that people were starting to do. Like, I saw there was so much like solo material coming out around that time, and like and the people I've talked to, like, yeah, I finally had time to actually, you know, do this. So for you, did you start this like during the pandemic, or was this already planned before?
So I started thinking about, I mean, I've been thinking about this for years, you know, putting out a record, but again, going back to the concept, it was really important for me to like have a sense of direction, you know, because once you develop a concept and it's more fleshed out, everything is easier. The songwriting is easier. The process is easier. You know, it just feels like you switched on autopilot almost. Because you have a sense of direction, and I feel like that was important. And so that sense of direction didn't come into full form until probably the beginning of this year. So I'd been thinking about it and writing songs, you know, all the way through the pandemic and before that, you know. I tease, you know, I have like hundreds of songs in my catalog that I'm just trying to find a home for. So this record was kind of like the first step in that. So it's like half material that I've just had written already prior to, saying, okay, I'm going to do a record. And then the other half is all new stuff, that I wrote, during the pandemic, or, during, or after I committed to, okay, I'm doing this record for real. And here's the concept, here's the idea, so let's go.
And totally, and that is really awesome. Especially, I like for you, and it definitely sounds like a lot easier for you to get everything straight and how you wanted the songs to go, and then go into the studio, because once you've already got it down, like as you said, it's just like autopilot. You're just doing like already what's planned. It's a lot easier for you, and to me, it probably was a better experience and a lot more enjoyable for you.
But there was a lot of spontaneity too, because I'm not sure if you know this, but it was just me in the studio, everything that you hear on the record, all the instruments, everything, it's just me. And, part of that is born out of necessity and a little bit of impatience. When I have a musical idea, I just need to get it out, right then. There's no time to, think or plan, or, and it's like, okay, this is exactly the way that I'm hearing it, so I'm just going to lay it down. And, so that's what you hear on the record.
I think I did not know that, but that is very cool that like all the songs, this whole album it's purely you, from every aspect, it is purely Mychael Gabriel.
Yeah. Yep.
So I did want to talk about, so like, since all these songs, as I said, and as you said, they're very different, like they all tell very different stories. They have different music genre and aspects to them. So for you, like, what is your writing process like? Like, how do you build a song? Like, how do you develop your ideas?
So growing up, I was always told, if you can sing it, if you can hum it, then you can play it. So a lot of the ideas will just start with me just mouthing something, an idea. And sometimes it's like a guitar riff, sometimes it's a bass line, sometimes it's, a vocal melody, or, and then it's not all the time that it happens that way, but then you get in the studio and you just start experimenting. And so, and sometimes you go through, the process of just like exploring on your instrument as well, whether it be guitar or piano. But that's generally how most of the songs kind of came to be. And other times, it's just you're going after a feeling. Like you're not even thinking about notes or chords or arrangements even. You're just thinking about, okay, what is this emotion that I am trying to capture, and what's the best way to express that, So like Let There Be Light, which is one of the singles off one of the first songs on the record, and one of the singles that are out right now. That was written in like 30 minutes. In a way, I felt like I was in the studio late at night, and you just kind of, your mind is already in a foggy kind of weird place because it's late, and but then you have this kind of stroke of genius, like, oh wait, that's it, and so I was playing this guitar riff, and then I was like, okay, I can't take it any further until I lay down the drum. So I went over to the drum set, laid that down, and then it was just kind of a snowball effect. And so it's a little there's no like one patent answer to that. It's a lot of different things, but I think that's what makes it fun.
And it definitely sounds like that. And to have just that stroke of inspiration where stuff starts clicking. I get that sometimes with, like, if I'm writing like questions or notes for my interview, like it's like 2 or 3 in the morning and I'm like kind of asleep, but not, still partially awake. And I go, I finally figured out how I'm going to, like, my intro or how I'm going to start this interview. So I have like a notebook next to my bed, because
they say that's so important to like, when you have those ideas, to like archive them, write them down, notate them somehow, whether it's a notepad or a voice recorder on your phone, or, whatever it is. Because a lot of times we think, oh, I'll remember that. I'll jot it down in the morning, or yeah, I'll do that. And then you wake up and you're like, wait, what was that? I feel like I had a really good idea. I was onto something, but I can't quite remember it the same way. It seems so clear at the time that I had the idea.
Exactly, and that's why like I used to be like, oh, I'll remember it, and then like next day or even just 10 minutes later, I go, oh, what was that idea?
You're
So
right.
now I write down like if I have any good idea, I do it, either do it right away or write it down right away. I do something for that I remember.
You should see me in the grocery store. I'm just like humming in my phone as I'm like grabbing things and putting them in my grocery cart and getting weird looks.
Hey, it's all about making music, though. That's the thing.
That's what it's about.
That's right. And I did want to talk about. I've talked to other people who've released albums, and they say it's very important for like, the track listing for that the music flows. How was it putting together a track list for Genesis?
Oh, so that was so fun. So just to kind of touch on that a little bit, I know I mentioned this isn't solely the only way to look at the record, but from an allegorical perspective, the first couple tracks, and I didn't come to this revelation till like partway through. Sometimes I like to describe being a songwriter, and especially like you mentioned, like the track listing, it can feel a lot like you're a sculptor, kind of uncovering whatever it is beneath your marble stone or whatever it is, so you're chiseling away at different parts of your creation to uncover what's underneath. So the first couple tracks are from the perspective of God, and the Madam I'm Adam and Radioactive Girl, those are from the perspective of humanity. And then it's just kind of a blend from that point on. And there's kind of an interplay that goes back and forth between the tracks. So that's kind of the story. But then sonically, I knew how I wanted the record to start. I like going to concerts where like it's a big opening in the beginning, right? And you just feel fired up, right? But you can't stay there the whole time. There has to be hills and valleys. So it kind of ramps up, and then it kind of comes down and it tapers off, and then we ramp up again. And so it's important, I feel like, to you're almost like a roller coaster engineer when you're coming up with that track listing. So it was fun. I'm happy with the way that it turned out, and I hope people enjoy it.
The way you describe that kind of the track listing, like the thoughts that go into it, it makes like from listening to the album, it makes a lot more. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
With what what you were trying to do, and
Mm-hmm.
that you accomplished it. But you're very right. I know for people for like live shows and albums, you got to get the person hyped up, but then you can kind of go through the hills and valleys.
Right.
But it's very important, and it's very lasting impression if you start off very impactful right away.
Yeah. I those are my favorite concerts anyway. That you just start off like, just right out the gate, 60 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour, whatever.
That's right. I love it too. I was at a punk show a few days ago, and they go pretty much full tilt the whole time, but they definitely start off very fast to begin with.
They make it count. They try to get your attention. I
Oh,
think
definitely.
That's what you got to do.
And that is for sure. For live music album, you have to capture the person's attention right away, because if you fail to do that, then they probably some will continue on with the album or the live show, but then others like, well, I'm not impressed, I guess I'll head out.
Yeah, exactly. You have a short window to make it count, so you make it count.
That's right. You got to make it count. And I did want to talk about, this is a new question I have for the season. I think it's very relevant because we're talking about the new album Genesis. So for you, if you recorded what you considered to be the most perfect album, but it was never released, would you be content knowing you recorded it, or would you want it released?
Ooh, that's a good question. Wow. Because there's so many different ways you can go about it, right?
There's multiple avenues. I've had so many different answers for this, and that's why I love asking it.
Ooh, I don't know, man. That's really like kind of putting me on the spot, and you start thinking. You have all these philosophical questions that kind of go along with that. It's like
there's multiple layers.
Is the music? Is it for you? I mean, I think I would rather it exist. Just the fact that it exists is probably enough. But at the same time, we think about, why do we do this? Because talent in all shapes and forms and sizes, it's rare, right? And I think it's important that for rare things for those to be shared, So I think, yeah, I have to think about that one a little bit longer. But that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's one of the.
I mean, what's your answer to that question? Since you've heard a whole lot of answers, what do you think?
Well, actually, one that stuck out to me very recently, and I thought this was a very good point. This is by Susie Moon, whose interview is going to be coming out pretty soon on Super Cool Radio. She said that with the cost of, like, because she went to, she had to record with, she went to a studio to record it. So she's like, with the cost of recording an album, it's almost financially unwise to not release it at that point, since you spent the money you invested in the studio time and yourself and your band to record the music, that it should be released to see what kind of feedback you do get. I thought that was really cool, and that was a different perspective that I was not expecting. And for me personally, my answer, since I look at it, like, I do all these podcasts, and unfortunately there's been a few where I couldn't release for a few different reasons. I couldn't release, and I'm kind of disappointed at it. But anything I do, anytime that I see the record button, I'm planning on releasing this at some point. So to me, and if you have a talent that you very much enjoy, that you've invested in, I think it's almost unfair to the world that you don't share it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a very fair point.
I think so. Now I do want to move on a little bit. We'll change up pace. No more hard questions until the last question at the end. I will tell you that. But for you, do you mentally prepare differently to record in the studio compared to performing live?
I think the process is probably technically sort of the same. But also it depends, because if you're going into the studio having really no idea what you're going in there to record, how do you prepare for that? Right? If it's a show, you know exactly what you're supposed to be playing. If there's some sort of choreography or stage blocking, you got to brush up on that. If there's, I guess, in that sense, it can be a different mindset, because you can kind of systematically kind of set yourself up to make sure you're prepared. Your level of preparedness is what it needs to be for, whatever you're doing, and that's one of the reasons, we have rehearsals, and I can't stress enough, the rehearsal isn't for you to go in and learn your parts. That's stuff that you should be doing at home. The rehearsal is for you to, make sure you're fully show ready, for in a live setting. And some of those things you don't necessarily have when you're recording in the studio. You don't really need to worry about choreography or stage blocking or anything like that, and then if you have no idea, if it's just like you're going in for a writing session or a jam, I feel like it's important to kind of try not to overthink, because I think that's the toughest part when you are in the studio. It can sometimes feel like a isolating experience, even if you're in a group, or like, let's say you have do an overdub and it's just you playing. Sometimes you get too much in your own head, and it's like, you're on take 50 of the same, guitar lick or, riff or, whatever, solo or whatever. I think it's important to try to stay loose, keep it fun, so that you can just be creative, because that's really what it's about. It's about capturing a moment. I think especially nowadays, we get so laser focused on it being perfect. And then we forget that sometimes the perfection is in the imperfection.
That is a great way to describe it. I know someone else told me that it's almost taking the human element out of music. If it's just so perfect. Yeah,
it becomes sterile, and I've done that to myself, as an engineer, as a producer, sometimes the demo sounds better than, you know, the project that you've spent hours, you know, producing and fine tuning and tweaking and everything. And then you go, man, I just sucked the life out of it. What am I doing? You know?
Exactly. And I've talked to so many people where they're like, this might not sound the most perfect, but it captured the moment that I wanted it to.
Right.
And that is for a lot of people, that's kind of the human imperfection is a part of music. It's been a part of music for so many, you know, generations and decades, that nowadays with, you know, we have such great technology, as you're very much aware of.
Auto-tune, quantizing, you know, all that. You know, it's like sometimes we get a little carried away. And it, like you said, it can suck the life out of the music.
It definitely can. And again, I know some people like that very squeaky clean sounding music, which is great. I have no issues with that.
Yeah, there's ways to do it where you don't lose the emotion. But that's a skill in and of itself too, that takes years of dedication and in crafting and really owning your craft, you know, honing your craft. But there's a song on the record, Sunday Afternoon on Genesis, where I recorded the lead vocal just using like my headphone mic. And because I wasn't in the studio at the time, but I, you know, was at the piano and, you know, I was singing the song, the lyrics to the song. And originally it was just going to be like the demo, you know, rough vocal, but I liked it so much. And I was like, yeah, but I didn't record it on my nice mic and all the excuses, but I really like the rawness and emotion and imperfection in the vocal, because it just suit the lyrical content so well. And, you know, then I remembered, you know, it's not so much about the tools, right? Like there's a saying, it's not about the tools that you have, the quality of the tools, it's the craftsman, right, behind the tools. So I kept the vocal, I kept the rough in there, and that's what you hear on the record too.
Well, that is really cool. I didn't know that about that song, but it's again, music is very emotion based. It's actually, I'll say it's almost purely emotion based for the writing process and the recording process. That's just like, you know, refining it. And as we said, we can refine it so much that you lose all the emotion, but to capture that emotion so well, it does, as you said, it doesn't really matter, you know, the quality, it's how it is who you are and the skills that you have and the craftsman in you.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But I did want to talk about, as we're coming closer to the end of this interview, I really enjoyed Genesis. I've been, again, listening to that for so much, but I did want to talk about, because you were also the co-producer, lead guitarist, and studio engineer for Sheila E.
Yes.
How did you start? How did you meet her, and like, how did you start working with her?
Okay, so that's going into a little bit of my background. So I'm just going to do that briefly. Sheila is actually my godmother. Her and my mom grew up in the Bay Area together, Bay Area, California. And they actually moved to Los Angeles together when Sheila made the move. And so my father, Gilbert Davison, was Prince's personal security, and then ended up becoming his manager and president of Paisley Park. My mom was Sheila E.'s co-lyricist and tour manager. So those two, they met on the Purple Rain World Tour. And so I like to jokingly say, you know, I'm kind of like a product of that tour. Had it not been for that tour, I would not exist. So the families have just stayed connected ever since then. When I was 16 years old, I called her up and I said, you know, hey, can I have an internship at your studio? You know, I don't care if I'm cleaning garbage cans or, you know, whatever it is that I'm doing. And she said, you know what? Yeah, I need, I have a bunch of DATs, old recordings that I need transferred. So you can come and do that and, you know, just kind of stick around. Well, some months later, she asked me, she says, okay, hey, my head engineer left to go out on tour and he's going to be gone for, you know, like 6 months or, you know, whatever. Do you know how to run any of this equipment? Because I need an engineer. And I said, yeah, I do. And so I became her head engineer, and I've been working with her since I was 16 years old, on and off in different various things. And working with her has provided me so many other opportunities to work, you know, in film and television and, you know, touring and all this stuff. It just really kind of opened the doors for me in a tremendous way. And so I'm filled with nothing but gratitude for, the uniqueness of that situation. Now that I'm older, at the time I didn't understand how unique and different that sort of situation was growing up around, these celebrities and musicians and legends and icons and stuff now, I was looking at it all through the eyes of a child. So I didn't fully understand it at the time, but like I said, I'm filled with nothing but gratitude now for the blessings I've been able to experience.
Well, it is truly incredible, and a very great situation for you. And very, I didn't know a lot of what you just said. I think that it is just so cool, and I'm very happy for you and for everybody that and it's such a great opportunity and a great situation for you. So I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Now I got two more questions. I have one last harder question, but I did want to start because you've worked with so many incredible musicians. You've collaborated with many, as I said in my intro. Is there any artists that you want to collaborate with that you've not yet?
That I haven't. I'm sure there is. I haven't given it a whole lot of thought before. I don't know. This is going to be a weird sort of answer, but that diamond in the rough artist that has yet to be discovered, I think that would be really cool.
I like that. Actually,
because
outside the box. I like that.
There's so many talented, artists and whatnot that don't always get the recognition that they deserve, So I don't know who that is. I can't stick a name to it. So maybe that's kind of a weird way of sort of avoiding the answer, but that's my answer.
But I don't, because as you said, there's so many musicians out there that do deserve more recognition for stuff. And I think whatever collaboration that comes down the road for you, I bet it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Last thing, I was building this question up. I've included this for a couple seasons now. What has been your most favorite moment from your musical career so far?
Again, this is kind of a weird sort of answer, but I'm going to say it anyway. And maybe I'll give you another one too. But the moment that I'm in right now, I think it's so important that, it's great for us to go back and appreciate where we've been. And it's important for us also to plan for our future, but we can't forget to live in the moment, right? So many times, especially when we think about our future, we're so focused on the goal. We're so focused on reaching summit that we forget to appreciate the journey. But that's what life is really about, right? And whether, things are good at the time or bad at the time, we got to appreciate the journey. So that's my answer.
I really like that answer.
Yeah.
You're the first person to say that. And I really liked it because this is something I've learned recently with a lot of the stuff I do is like, just live in the moment that you're in right now. Don't think about what you're going to do tomorrow. You can plan, that's fine. But
right.
While you're there right now, like when I cover live shows and stuff, it's like, I want to be here enjoying the time I'm here.
Be present.
Exactly. I'm not going to think about driving back to my home the next day or 3 hours away or anything like that. I want to take in this moment right now.
Right. Well, okay. So here's my bonus, right?
Okay, go for it.
When we played the Grammys, there was a lot of that sort of feeling, right? I sometimes say, okay, if you're in a situation that feels uncomfortable or you're nervous or you're afraid, think about the after, because, generally your life isn't going to end like right then and there. It's a lot of the stuff we're nervous about, they're most of the time, like 90% of the time, maybe 99% of the time, they're not life-threatening situations. It's just, we're nervous or, whatever it is, the butterflies in your feelings sort of stomach, public speaking, getting in front of a large crowd or, whatever it is. I don't know. So when we played the Grammys in 2020, there was a lot of that sort of, I'm going to be in this moment, because how often do you get to play the Grammys? It's arguably, one of the world's biggest stages, so there was a sense of preparedness that kind of helped ease whatever nerves that you would have, because we're in rehearsals a lot. You know, so that makes it a little easier. But yeah, when we finally hit the stage, the cameras and lights were on and everything. It was just about savoring that moment, you know. And so that's my bonus answer.
I really like that bonus answer, and the Grammys are just so prestigious too. To be a part of that long lineage and history that the Grammys have.
Yeah,
and truly incredible experience.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so as I wrap this up, what are the plans for 2023 for Mychael Gabriel?
Touring, man. I've been
I've
been chomping at the bit to, you know, play some of these songs live. So that's kind of going to be primary area of focus. So in terms of other sort of digital and virtual sort of releases, this album, to me, there's the visual aspect is really important. So you can look forward to seeing many more music videos for all of the songs. And I'm also working on a deluxe version of the record with, you know, bonus songs that originally weren't included on the record, but I'm going to add them on the deluxe version. So all those things.
Oh, I really enjoy it. I look forward to seeing you live because I know you're going to put on a killer show.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I can't wait to invite you. Where are you at? What city are you in?
I'm based out of South Bend, Indiana.
Oh, right on. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when we come into town, I'll let you know.
Definitely. I definitely look forward to that moment. But Mychael, thank you so much for chatting with me. I had a fantastic time hanging out with you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
So I'll drop some links for Genesis, for yourself as well in the description of this podcast. Please check out all of those links. And Mychael, thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting you in person.
All right, man. Take care.
So for Mychael Gabriel, I am Matthew Thomas, the host of Super Cool Radio. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And remember, stay frosty.